we're going to talk a bit more about curves. Grab this clip called number 6, Hues, and bring it in. Right now we have that image of this field, which looks fairly dried out and as if it's dying. We can use more curves in order to change what this actual image looks like. Scroll down below the RGB curve to where we have hue saturation curves. First one we have is called hue versus saturation. What this is saying is that depending on what color I select, the hue, I can affect its individual saturation. Let's say that I wanted to make the sky much more saturated. All I have to do is click on this eyedropper and then click out in the sky somewhere. And automatically you can see on this rainbow colored line I have that I now have 3 dots in my blue section because the eyedropper recognized that I'm asking to adjust the blues. I can click it, and by raising up, I will raise the saturation on this shade of blue. You can see it already happening in the sky. By dropping it down, I'm bringing it to gray. I'll raise it up a fair amount. Now, if I want to raise it even further than this in more areas of blue, all I have to do is click on the line in order to make a new dot for myself, and then raise the next area of blue next to it. And that allows me to adjust individual bits of saturation. By toggling it on and off, you can see just how much so. It's not a huge change, but it's brightened everything up a little bit. Now let's talk about this rainbow colored line below hues versus saturation called hue versus hue. This allows me to change individual colors to different colors. I'm going to go ahead and select my eyedrop tool next to hue versus hue, and I'm going to select this somewhat reddish color out in the middle of my field. And you can see I now have 3 dots, 2 over here and 1 over here. Let's say that I want this field to appear as green and lively as all the other clips we've worked with during this color correction tutorial. Click on this center red dot, and you may notice that we now have a vertical rainbow colored line. I'm now going to drag down to where the green is on this line. Look at my preview while I do this. You can automatically see that all those spots of red are changing to a green. Now this is obviously edited looking because a lot of this field is still in this same dingy color. So I'll go ahead and make another point for myself and drag down the oranges. And all of a sudden I'm ending up with this intense green field that I didn't have before. It's still very clearly edited, so to make it a bit more natural, I'll drag it up towards the yellows a little bit more. And I'll affect some of my other red points as well. Now, just sitting here and staring at this, it's very clear that this is not necessarily the most natural look, but if we only had this on screen for maybe a second, I don't think many people are going to question that. And if I wanted, I could lower the saturation a little bit of all of this in order to make it look more natural. Watch what actually happens when I go back to hue versus saturation and click on my field. Pay attention to the rainbow colored line. You may have noticed that rather than having dots show up in green, it's showing up over on the reds. That's because the program knows that even though I've adjusted this to look green, this field is actually more of a reddish orange tone. I'll drag down the saturation just slightly on it, very little. And automatically we're getting just a slightly more realistic looking shade of green. Now the last of these curves that I want to show you is this one here called hue versus luma. Luma refers to how bright something is. It's essentially the exposure. I'll go ahead and select this, and I'll go ahead and actually select in these trees this time, because I want to lighten up the trees a little bit. Be very careful when adjusting the hue versus luma. You do it even a little bit too much and automatically things start to look very blown out, as you can see here when I bring it to the very top. Same as if you crushed everything down all the way to the bottom. You're going to end up with what looks like holes in your image. So instead, I'll just raise it up very, very slightly, just to give a little bit more brightness and life to those trees. And there we have our new image. There are these 2 other lines called luma versus saturation, saturation versus saturation, but we're not going to worry about them for the time being. Right now, I just want you to focus in on these color-based lines. If I go ahead and turn off the curves altogether, you can see just how different this image was originally. It used to be very red, and now we have this lively field. Again, it's not the most realistic looking in the world, but if it's only on screen for a short period of time, it could work as a simple filler clip. In fact, by doing this, we might even be able to trick a viewing audience into thinking that this clip was shot at the same time as our 3 faded. I'll show you how to make these 2 look like they go together even more so by using match image in the next video.